Greetings everyone, my name is Buck Business and welcome to my review of Rogue One Star Wars story. So, this is a review of this movie and it's not good, in my opinion. Definitely one of the weaker films. So, the beginning is this set of pieces and characters that are unrecognizable and there's little to no explanation of who these characters are except that one of them is shooting the stormtroopers and then he talks to this other guy and shoots him. That's the only setup we get, except that he's told this big secret. So then we follow Jin, the main character, who is shortly teamed up with this pilot guy, whose name I cannot remember to save my life, as well as two others, a staff guy and a tough guy. Again, their names are very hard to remember because I barely remember hearing them in the movie. Their defining characteristics are extremely basic. For example, the staff guy is a guy that believes in the Force, and the reason I know that is because he says, "I believe in the Force," like 20 times in the movie. The tough guy is like, "Oh, the Force didn't save you, I did," and that's his one big line in the entire movie. And then he just sort of goes on to be the sort of tough guy who aims well. And then there's the pilot who sort of is supposedly supposed to be crazy after having this tentacle thing on him, even though that affects him. It doesn't affect him at all, apparently, except that it's supposedly supposed to make him crazy. And then nothing happens of that. And then he sort of says, "Oh," and he brings in at one point these other guys. And he's like, "Oh, we're a bunch of bad guys, but we did it for the rebellion because of reasons, so we're good." And pretty decent moment at the very least. You have the robot, which again, to me, is probably the only saving grace of this entire film. I would argue that this is the best robot in any of the Star Wars films, which is kind of odd. But hey, at least the other two robots are here, R2D2 and C3PO, for some reason to say one thing and then be out of the rest of the movie. Darth Vader is in this movie to do this really cool one scene of the choking and then come back at the end of the film. So there's that. All the elements that are a part of previous Star Wars films is neat. The rest of this film, besides the robot, suffers greatly. The writing is terrible. The pacing at the beginning, especially, is terrible. Some of the stuff in the middle just sort of either happens way too fast or happens kind of too slow. It's like a rambling mess of each scene from scene to scene. Uh, and by the time we get to the end, we get to this really incredibly stupid moment of this ring, this gate thing that the characters go down. Ren is going down with her cast or with the crew, and they're going into the Citadel. I think that's what it was called, to get the map for the Death Star. And then the ships, the rebellion coming in, and some of them make it through, and then the gate closes in this ring thing, and no other pilot thinks, "Hey, you know what? We can just fly around or through, like over on another side of this ring and just fly down." No one thinks of this. And it's just stupid. It is there for the sake of drama, and drama that doesn't even make sense when no ship again decides to just fly down around instead of through this sort of ring thing. Uh, a lot of the characters that we see die, which in hindsight, or as in right now, it's not really that big of a deal since their characters really weren't that well defined. Even the main character, she's just sort of like, "Oh, I'll just try this. Oh, I guess I'll just go along with this." and her moments aren't really that much stronger than the rest of the characters, again, with the exception of the robot character. When you only have one interesting character in your entire movie, and your entire movie suffers from pacing, very weak dialogue choices, very weak pacing issues, and a slew of just being kind of boring for a good chunk of the film. Like this whole scene with the two caped guys, one being a white caped guy and the other guy being a black caped guy, arguing about who should take credit for destroying planets, and it's just like it is so boring right now. There's nothing happening, and these two guys are just acting like children, except it's actually even less boring than that, or I should say more boring than that. So, this is the first movie on my list on this channel that has had the pleasure of getting a rant, which is very uncommon, but this movie just isn't good. It's not a good. I mean, it's a. I would say an okay story at the very most, and I suppose it fills some sort of plot hole in The New Hope or before that, since that's what it's apparently a prequel to. I think. I've not seen those Star Wars movies in quite a long time, so I don't quite remember exactly why this little thing needed to be included, but I guess it was the case. But regardless, even as a story in itself, it's just not very interesting. There are a lot of boring bits, and when it comes time to the big climax at the end, it just has that big stupid moment, and then it's just sort of like, oh, the characters sort of die, these characters that just really weren't that interesting, and it makes it really hard to be invested in anything that just happened. But it's like, this feels like a movie that if it was written better, but also ironically done before A New Hope, would have done a lot better at building up the hype to A New Hope. But that's not the case. New Hope's been out for a long time, I assume, if I remember what year that came out, but I don't really remember that detail, but that's fine. Uh, so I'm giving this movie a very weak 2 out of 10. It is just not a good film, and if you want to pass on this, I wouldn't blame you. But if you did like this review, though, unlike how I did not like this movie, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, farewell, everyone.